Okay, so attachment. This is your long-standing connection or bond with others. Harry Harlow was one of the first people to really study this. And for him, he said that it wasn't just about nourishment. So the original idea with attachment was that it was all about nourishment. So babies were attached to their mothers because their mothers were the ones that fed them. Harlow did an experiment it was unethical, using monkeys to study this attachment. And so I will show you that video now.
Let me show you a monkey raised on a nursing wire mother. Now here are 106's two mothers. As you can see, it was weaned on a wire mother. Here's baby 106. Watch.
He's going to the wire mother.
He's got to eat to live.
Oh, he's going back.
He's back on the cloth mother, and he'll stay on the cloth mother. Actually, this baby spends from 17 to 18 hours a day on the cloth mother and less than 1 hour a day on the wire mother. We had predicted that the variable of contact comfort would be a variable of measurable importance, but we were unprepared to find that it completely overwhelmed and overshadowed all other variables, including those of nursing.
Frankly, Doctor, if it comes to a choice between wire and cloth, it's reasonable to expect that any child will go to the cloth. It's a matter of creature comfort, like a baby with its blanket. But is this really love?
Well, what do you mean by saying that a baby loves its mother? Certainly one thing we mean is that it gets a great feeling of security in the presence of the mother. Now, Mr. Collingwood, wouldn't you say that if you frightened a baby, that it went running to its mother, was comforted, and then all the fear disappeared and was replaced by a complete sense of security that that baby loved its mother? Now, in this experiment, this is the apparatus we use.
That looks diabolical.
That's just the way the baby monkey feels about it. Flashing eyes, loud sounds, moving mechanical parts, all of these things are designed to frighten a monkey. Now here we have a peaceful, resting baby monkey. Let's find out what his reactions to his mother are when we frighten him.
He's scared, all right.
And he does what any child will do in a similar situation.
He runs away.
It's more than running away. He was running to his mother, to touch her, to drive away his fear. Contact with the mother changes his entire personality. Look, now he's actually threatening the diabolical object. All right. This gives us part of the picture of the strength of infantile love.
So it's not all about food. It's about comfort. So attachment has an emotional component to it. John Bowlby focused on these feelings of comfort that are important in order to have normal social and emotional development. You have to have a healthy attachment in order to develop correctly. He talked about it as a secure base. So that is when the parental presence gives the child a sense of safety as they explore their surroundings. For example, in the video, the monkey, when he's afraid, runs to the terry cloth mother. As long as they are with their mother, then they can be brave, then they can yell at the monster, but they need that secure base for exploration. And so in order to develop the secure base, the caregivers have to be responsive to the kids' needs, their physical, their social, their emotional needs. And Bowlby thought that attachment was all or none. Mary Ainsworth sort of modified this. She has her strange situation, it's called, and you will see examples of it. And through putting kids in this strange situation, she can decide if they have one of 4 types of attachment. She says there's 4 types. You can have secure attachment or one of 3 types of insecure attachment. So I'm going to explain these types of attachment, and then you're going to see a video with attachment styles, and you need to guess which each attachment style is. So for secure attachment, that caregiver is a secure base. The child is willing to explore the world as long as the parent is there. They'll be brave when the parent's there. If the parent leaves, the child will be sad. When the parent returns, the child is easily comforted by the caregiver. And strangers are not treated the same as the parent. So strangers cannot comfort the kid in the same way. Strangers are different. So that's secure attachment. Insecure avoidant is when you just avoid the caregiver. You don't care if the caregiver leaves. You don't care when they come back. So you're not sad when they leave. You're not happy when they come back. They're just whatever. Like even if you're one, you're kind of just on your own. Insecure resistant, which is also sometimes called anxious ambivalent. It's kind of this hot cold thing. So when the caregiver leaves, you might be sad, but a stranger can comfort you. A stranger is almost like a caregiver like that. Like you can be comforted by a stranger. You don't necessarily see the stranger as that different from your caregiver. When the caregiver comes back, a kid who's insecure resistant might go to the caregiver, but then start crying again or hit the caregiver. So that's that hot, cold, that ambivalent thing. It's like, I want to be near you, but then I want to push you away at the same time. And then finally, insecure disorganized. You're not going to see an example of this because this is strongly correlated with neglect. And so it's not the most ethical thing to show you videos of kids who've probably been abused. So you're not going to see a video. But it's sometimes it's also called disorganized, disoriented, because the kid just looks confused. The kid doesn't seem like they'll freeze, they run away from the caregiver, they just don't know how to act around the caregiver because the caregivers probably abused them. Or you often see this in kids who are orphaned very young, who've gone through something traumatic. So again, I'm going to show you videos. One's going to be secure, one's going to be insecure avoidant, one's going to be insecure resistant, and I want you to guess what each one is.
Telephone? Telephone? That's the most interesting thing you can find to play with in here. Here. Blocks. Is that cool? You do it. Hello. Guys. Hi.
little man.
Oh, no, don't cry. Oh, no, but you're not. You got it. Jamie. Don't cry. Here, look. Oh, look at the blood. Look. Here, look. Say hello. Hello. Yes. What's the matter? Come here. Don't cry. Come here. Come here. Yeah. Cry. Forward. Okay. There you go. Go, Bonk.
That on here, on the side. Should we make it wide? We're gonna try to put that on top. Oh, it's gonna fall. Look. Ah, you're gonna put that way up on the top. Watch what's gonna happen. Lindsay. Timber. Lindsay, you want to build this? What do you have there? Is that a big gourd or squash?
Mama.
She'll be back. Here, we can play with them here. There you go. Baby. Hey, your shoe's untied. Want me to try your shoe? Come to my...
You step outside for a few minutes.
Oops. Hello, telephone. It's okay if somebody takes care of you sometimes. Well, it is. Oh, okay. In a little while, okay. With the car, that's me. Look. You have your fun? The baby? Oh, you love the baby? What's the baby's name? You want me to take care of it? Hi, Destiny. Good. Hi, Destiny. 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 Hey, Destiny. You having fun?
Okay, so next thing to go over is self-concept. Babies don't have a self-concept. Like if a baby, 6-month-old, 12-month-old looks at a picture of themselves or looks at themselves in the mirror, they don't know it's them. They don't know who that is. You develop self-concept by about 18 months old, and the way we test that is the mirror test. It's also called the Rouge test. And basically you put a red dot on a kid's nose, like rouge, and then you put them in front of the mirror. And before about 18 months old, they'll just smile at the cute baby in the mirror. At about 18 months old, they'll try to wipe the red off their nose because that's when they can look in the mirror and know that is me. So self-concept about 18 months. You can recognize yourself in pictures somewhere between 2 to 3 years of age. 24 to 36 months. By about 6 years of age, a big part of your self-concept is your group membership, so your social identities. I'm part of this group at school. Here's my friends. That's a big part of yourself. It's good to have a positive self-concept. If you have a positive self-concept, you're going to be more confident. You tend to do better in school, more willing to try new activities. So it's good to have a good self-concept. Another thing to know is temperament. Temperament are your innate traits that influence how you think, behave, and react with the environment. There are 3 temperaments: easy, difficult, and slow to warm up. You are born with your temperament. It's genetically based. You cannot choose what your kid's temperament is going to be. If they have an easy temperament, that's exactly how it sounds. It's easy for them to have changes in their routine. They adjust well. If it's difficult, they do not like change. They need routine and structure. And then slow to warm up is in the middle. They'll be okay with change if you just give them a little bit. And then final thing for this slide, Baumrind, her parenting styles. She says parenting styles affects self-concept. There are 4 parenting styles. It's based on 2 dimensions: warmth and guidance. So how loving the parents are, how much they say, I love you, how much they hug the kid. And then guidance, how much structure there is, how many rules. If the very best one is authoritative, high warmth, high guidance. So there's lots of rules, but there's a lot of love, a lot of care. If there's a lot of rules, but there's not a lot of love, a very strict parent, you're more likely to see parents who use positive physical punishment, spanking. They're going to say things like, because I said so. That is authoritarian. That is not so good. These kids will tend to be unhappy, withdrawn, anxious. If you have lots of warmth but not a lot of guidance, this is the parent that wants to be your best friend instead of a parent. You get to do what you want, and if you don't like it, you can stop. These kids tend to have lower grades. They tend to do more risky behaviors, use alcohol, engage in sex at a younger age. But they tend to have high self-esteem because their parents have told them they're perfect all the time, even if they flunk all their classes. And then finally, if you don't have warmth or guidance, that is the uninvolved parent or neglectful parent. Worst outcomes for the kids. The kids tend to be emotionally withdrawn, fearful, anxious. They do poorly in school. It's not so great. So kids who have authoritative parents tend to have a higher self-concept. And then next is adolescence. And we'll go through adolescence, emerging adulthood, and adulthood fairly quickly. In adolescence, a big thing that happens here is puberty. So that is what starts adolescence. So about 12 years of age. What happens in puberty is you develop primary and secondary sex characteristics. Primary sex characteristics are your organs specifically needed for reproduction. This is uterus and ovaries. These are the testes. You need this in order to reproduce. Secondary sex characteristics are physical signs of sexual maturation, but they don't directly involve the sex organs. This is an Adam's apple on a man or chest hair. This is breasts on a woman. It's a sign that you are biologically male or female, but you can have children biologically even without these things. So those are the secondary sex characteristics. During adolescence is when you see menarche and spermarche. Menarche is the first menstrual period, usually about 12 to 13. Spermarche, first ejaculation with sperm, about a year later, 13 to 14. Girls tend to mature sooner. And so, question for you, for males and females, who has more issues with peers, emotional issues, all that? Is it kids or adolescents who develop early or adolescents who develop late? So for girls, early maturing girls are more likely to have depression, substance abuse, eating disorders. For boys, it's the late maturing boys. They're more likely to have depression, be bullied, that sort of thing. So that is the physical development. Cognitively, this is, during adolescence, is when you're able to consider multiple points of view. Again, thinking back to Piaget, this is when you're able to think hypothetically. You tend to develop cognitive empathy, so that theory of mind, being able to take someone else's perspective, feel what they feel, that really starts to develop during adolescence. And for psychosocial development, this is when you are, if you think back to Erikson, this is when you are trying to develop your own sense of identity, different from your parents. It doesn't mean you can't have a good relationship with your parents, because adolescents who do have a healthy, warm relationship with their parents tend to have better grades and less problems in school. And then for adulthood, there are now 2 stages in adulthood. You have emerging adulthood and then actual adulthood. Emerging adulthood is from 18 to when you think it's over. So this can be, somewhere between like 25 to 28. And this theory, this stage of development, was created by Jeffrey Jensen Arnett. Random fact for you, my house burned down when I was in grad school, and Jensen Arnett, he and his wife were both professors at my university, and they were on sabbatical in Europe, and he let me move into his mansion for a year while I replaced all my stuff. So I know I learned a lot about his emerging adulthood theory reading all the books in his house. So emerging adulthood, you're not a kid anymore. You're not an adolescent, but you don't feel like a real adult. Like, you're probably not paying all your own bills. You're not married with a kid and a mortgage and a full-time job. Like, you're kind of an adult, but then not really. That's emerging adulthood. It's something that's really created because we don't need 18-year-olds to be productive members of society. You are allowed to take a few years to like figure your life out. And so emerging adulthood is really culturally based, like how long it lasts, if you can even have it. If you're from a culture that really needs you to be a functioning member of society at 18, then you're not going to have emerging adulthood. You're kind of jump right in. There can also be some like subcultural differences. If you're in a community that expects you to get married at 19, then you're not going to have several years of finding yourself. You're going to have those years married with kids. So it's a new stage of development. It's sort of fluid when it ends. It's when you feel like you are a legit adult. And then you move into adulthood. And so adulthood, there are several components to this where things change. Young adulthood is when you really have your physical peak as far as your strength, your fitness, and then it gradually declines, the 40s, 50s, 60s. You gain weight because your metabolism slows. Your senses start to go in late adulthood, so like you don't have as many taste receptors on your tongue, so food tastes blander. You lose some of your olfactory receptors, so you can't smell as strong. Sight, hearing, all your senses get dulled in late adulthood. Cognitively, what you should know, one, Valent, and he did a longitudinal study, 50-year study. He wasn't the only one who did it, where they focused on the meaning of life, like what gave people satisfaction. A lot of it was positive relationships. So it's the people you had relationships with. If you had people you were close with, that gave you the highest sense of emotional well-being. By the way, I'm doing psychosocial development. I skipped over. I will talk about cognitive next. And then in late adulthood, you have what is called the socio-emotional selectivity theory. Basically, when you're old, you have less friends. So your social group decreases. You just don't have the energy to have a whole bunch of friends. But the ones that are still your friends, you're a lot closer to. So you're more selective, but you are closer with the people you still want in your life. And then finally, cognitive. You learn chapter 7, the intelligence chapter, we talked about fluid versus crystallized intelligence. Fluid intelligence is that information processing ability. Crystallized intelligence is accumulation of knowledge. Your crystallized intelligence stays steady throughout adulthood. Fluid intelligence decreases in late adulthood. So you process information slower in late adulthood. But unless there's something like dementia going on, you won't forget your facts. And then last slide, death and dying. Something that is becoming more popular is hospice, which is it helps you provide a death with dignity and pain management in a humane and comfortable environment. It's usually outside the hospital. There are hospice centers, or it can be hospice care within your home. You will use hospice when you are not taking any more treatments to extend the length of your life. So quantity doesn't matter anymore. Instead, the focus is now on quality. So giving you a comfortable and dignified death. And almost 2 million families a year go through hospice care in the U.S. And it's beneficial. You feel you have more social support. It helps you with coping in the death of your loved one, and it helps the person who is dying feel more comfortable as they are dying. So hospice is a great thing. And then finally, Kubler-Ross. You have probably heard of the stages of grief. They are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Not everyone experiences all of these stages. You do not have to experience them in order. You can go through one stage multiple times, but generally these are the stages people tend to experience when they are going through grief. And that is it for this chapter.